The first time Daniel Mercer knelt at his daughter's grave, it felt like the earth was burying him too. The cemetery was so still it almost refused to breathe the air cold enough to sting his skin as he traced the carved letters Emily Mercer. 2 months had passed since the fire at Claudia's remote cabin. 2 months since firefighters pulled only ashes and Emily's tiny belongings from the ruins. They told him there was nothing left to save. He hadn't argued. He didn't even have the strength to ask why. Once he was the untouchable millionaire everyone admired. Now Daniel moved like a shadow, kept upright only by Claudia's soft, apologetic tenderness and the firm grip of his younger brother Ryan, who kept repeating, "I've got the company. Just try to stay alive, Dan." But at the grave, the mask shattered. He pulled a small silver bracelet from his pocket, the one he'd clasped around Emily's wrist on her last birthday, and held it as if it were her hand. His shoulders shook. "You promised you'd never leave me, remember," he whispered, voice breaking. "How am I supposed to breathe without you?" Guilt clawed at his chest, burning like the flames that had devoured the cabin. What if I'd gone with her? What if I'd arrived in time? The questions were knives with no answers. "I'd give everything," Daniel choked out, staring at the empty sky, "everything, just to hold you one more time." But what Adrian Blake could not see, what he could not even imagine, was that just a few yards behind a towering oak, Elena was alive. The little girl he mourned was standing in the shadows, trembling so hard her knees nearly buckled. Her tiny fingers dug into the tree bark, as if she needed something solid to keep her from collapsing. She watched her father fall apart in front of a stone that should never have carried her name, and every tear running down his face sliced through her like a blade. Elena took one small step toward him, then stopped, swallowing a sob so sharp it burned her throat. "Go to him," her heart begged. "Run. Tell him you're here. Tell him you didn't leave him." But another voice, colder, terrified, held her still. "If they find out you escaped, they'll hurt him next." Fear pinned her where she stood. She had slipped away from the place where they kept her locked in darkness, using every ounce of courage a child could gather. Just a few minutes, just long enough to see her father breathe, to see the world beyond those suffocating walls. But seeing him like this, broken, whispering to a gravestone, it nearly shattered her. "Daddy." The word formed on her lips, soundless, aching. He pressed the silver bracelet to his chest like it was her heartbeat. Elena's tears fell silently. She wanted to run into his arms more than she wanted air, but she knew she couldn't. Not yet. So she stepped back into the shadows, letting the distance between them widen like a wound, praying he would stay alive long enough for her to come home for real. That night, back in the suffocating room where she'd been kept for weeks, Elena curled into the thin mattress and pretended to sleep. Her small body was still shaking from seeing her father at the cemetery. She blinked into the darkness, trying to swallow her fear. But then it happened. Voices. Real voices. Not the distant murmurs she'd heard before, but clear enough to freeze her blood. She slipped quietly off the mattress and tiptoed toward the cracked door. A sliver of yellow light spilled across the floor, and through it, she saw them, Vanessa and Damon, lounging in the living room as if celebrating. Vanessa let out a low, satisfied laugh. 2 months, Damon, and no one suspects a thing. They all believe the fire. Damon smirked, swirling a glass of wine. And Adrian's still crying for a daughter he thinks is dead. Elena clapped her hands over her mouth, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Then Vanessa's voice turned colder poison, dipped in honey. "Let him cry. The inheritance is already moving into place. And the best part, every cup of tea I give him brings him closer to dying without anyone noticing." Poison. They were poisoning her father. Elena's knees buckled. The woman who once tucked her into bed, the uncle who once lifted her onto his shoulders, monsters wearing familiar faces. Damon laughed, leaning back. "He trusts you more than anyone. That's what makes it perfect." A tremor racked Elena's body. They hadn't just stolen her. They wanted to kill her father and take everything. Tears blurred her vision, but somewhere beneath the terror, something fierce awakened. I have to save him, she told herself, breath trembling. No matter what it takes. Elena lay frozen on the cold floor long after the last cruel laugh faded down the hallway. Her small chest rose and fell in frantic bursts as the truth carved itself into her heart. They were going to kill her father. Not someday. Not eventually. Now slowly, quietly, while he trusted them. A sob clawed up her throat, but she bit it back. Panic wouldn't save him. Silence would. She waited until the house fell still, until Vanessa's heels stopped clicking, and Damon's voice dissolved into the distant dark. Only then did she stand trembling, but determined, wiping her tears with the back of her sleeve. She pushed the back window open just a few inches at first. The rusted frame moaned like a warning, but she didn't stop. She squeezed through, falling onto the wet grass outside. The cold stung her bare feet, but fear pushed her forward. Branches scratched her legs as she ran through the woods, breath-shallow heart pounding like a drum, urging her onward. I have to reach him. I have to save him. Hours blurred together, darkness, dirt, hunger, a relentless ache in her legs. But she didn't stop. Not once. When the first pale light rose over the city, Elena saw it, her father's mansion. Safe. Familiar. Home. She stumbled to the gate and pounded with the last strength she had. Daddy, please. Footsteps approached. The door swung open, and there he was, Adrian, his tired eyes widening, his world freezing as he whispered her name. Elena. She fell into his arms, her tiny body shaking, his tears spilling into her hair as he crushed her against his chest. She was alive, and for the first time in months, so was he. Adrian held Elena so tightly he feared she might vanish again if he loosened even an inch. Her breath trembled against his chest, and for a moment neither of them spoke, just the raw sound of two hearts remembering how to beat. But then Elena pulled back, eyes swollen, voice quivering. Daddy, I didn't die in that fire. It wasn't an accident. Her words hit him like a blade. Adrian froze, searching her face, trying to understand. What are you saying, sweetheart? She swallowed courage, rising through the fear. Vanessa and Damon, they planned everything. They set the fire, they took me, and... Daddy... Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. They're poisoning you. Every tea, every meal she makes. It's killing you slowly. They want everything you have. The room tilted. Adrian staggered back, hands gripping his hair, as if trying to tear the horror out of his mind. No. Vanessa Damon. His voice was disbelief sharpened by pain. No. They wouldn't. But the truth was in Elena's trembling, in her eyes, in her survival. A roar tore out of Adrian's chest rage, betrayal, grief, all colliding at once. For months I mourned you, he choked. And they stood beside me, lied to me, tried to bury me alive. Elena reached for his hand, her small fingers trembling, but brave. I didn't know how to tell you, Daddy. But you have to stay alive. We have to stop them. Adrian sank to his knees in front of her, gripping her hands like a lifeline. His voice was low, fiery, unbreakable. They took everything from me, except you. And I swear, Elena, this ends now. They will never touch our lives again. Adrian paced the study like a storm trapped inside four walls. His fists clenched, his breath harsh, the betrayal coursing through him like fire in his veins. Elena watched from the edge of the room, her small frame curled inward, torn between fear and hope. She had saved him once already, now she feared losing him to vengeance. Daddy, you can't go after them, she whispered, voice shaking. If they find out I'm alive, they'll hurt you. They'll try again. Her words stopped him cold. Adrian turned, the fury in his eyes softening as he knelt before her. You're right, he breathed. I won't risk your life. Not again. A fragile silence settled, broken only by the ticking clock on the mantel. Then Adrian spoke, his voice low, controlled, dangerously calm. If we want to defeat them, we have to let them believe they've already won. Elena blinked, confused. What do you mean? I'll play the part they expect the dying man. I'll grow weaker in their eyes. I'll cancel meetings, withdraw from everything. Let them think their poison is working. He took her hands gently, the strength in his touch, steadying her trembling. And you, sweetheart, you must return to where they're keeping you. If you disappear now, they'll know I'm onto them. Elena's breath hitched. Go back, Daddy. I'm scared. Adrian pulled her into a fierce embrace. I know, but it's only for 1 week. After that, escape again, and meet me at the old iron bridge in Central Park, the one with the cracked plaque. That's where we'll end this. Together. A spark, small but determined, flared in Elena's eyes. Father and daughter, once victims, now forged a pact stronger than fear. The war had begun. The very next morning, Adrian stepped into the role that would fool an entire nation. He canceled meetings, retreated from public view, and allowed rumors to bloom like poison in the air. Old colleagues whispered that the once unyielding mogul looked pale, hollow, fading. And Adrian let them believe it. Every staggered breath, every slow step, every tremor in his hand, he rehearsed it all, studying himself in the mirror until even he barely recognized the ghost staring back. News outlets soon echoed with headlines, Adrian Blake, battling severe health decline. Whispers turned into certainty, and finally certainty into tragedy. A week later, the world awoke to the headline meant to end his life. Business titan, Adrian Blake, dies of cardiac arrest. The country mourned. Photos of Adrian flooded every screen, tributes, eulogies, shaking voices speaking of a man gone too soon. But hidden from sight, watching the chaos unfold, Adrian felt only 2 things: the ache of being buried alive, and the fire of what was coming next. The funeral was a spectacle, cameras flashing like lightning across storm clouds, and at the center of it, Vanessa, draped in black silk, wept with perfect timing. Every tear fell exactly where she needed it to. I lost the love of my life, she whispered to reporters, her voice trembling beautifully. Beside her, Damon stood tall, offering a speech that drew sympathetic sighs. My brother, my partner, my best friend. Those watching saw devotion. Adrian, hidden in a distant car, saw performance. He saw the way Damon's hand brushed Vanessa's, the way her smile flickered beneath the veil, the way they believed, truly believed, that they had won. And that belief was the very thing that would destroy them. In the days that followed the funeral, the Blake mansion transformed into a stage draped in false grief. Black ribbons hung on the gates, journalists gathered at the entrance, and the world believed that Vanessa, the elegant widow, and Damon, the grieving brother, were bravely holding the empire together. Behind closed doors, however, their sorrow evaporated like mist under sunlight. Vanessa traded mourning clothes for silk and diamonds within a week. Damon, once solemn for the cameras, toasted their victory with imported wine. We did it, she whispered, lifting her glass. Damon smirked. Adrian built an empire and handed it right to us. Their confidence swelled as the date approached the inheritance probate, the legal ceremony where Adrian's vast fortune would officially become theirs. The courthouse was packed with attorneys, investors, reporters hungry for a headline. And when Vanessa and Damon entered, dressed in flawless black, the room stood in sympathetic silence. Vanessa dabbed a tear before signing her name with a graceful flourish. Damon signed next, shoulders squared like a man accepting a kingdom. It's what Adrian would have wanted, he murmured solemnly. The judge nodded. With these signatures, the estate of Adrian Blake is hereby... Boom! The courtroom doors burst open, slamming against the wall with a crack that silenced every breath in the room. Papers flew. People gasped, cameras whipped toward the entrance, and there, standing in the doorway as if risen from the grave, was Adrian Blake, eyes burning with righteous fire. At his side, holding his hand with quiet courage, was Elena. Vanessa's scream tore through the chamber. Damon staggered backward, face draining of color. Their perfect victory shattered in a single heartbeat. For a moment the room froze, time suspended between disbelief and terror. Then chaos erupted like a dam breaking. Vanessa stumbled to her feet, her veil falling away as her face twisted in horror. "No. No, this is impossible," she gasped, backing into her chair as if Adrian were a ghost clawing his way out of the grave. Damon's legs buckled. Sweat poured down his temples as he gripped the edge of the table, eyes wild. This is a trick. It's fake. He's dead." Adrian stepped forward, the microphone trembling under the force of his grip. His voice rose like thunder through the courtroom. "For 2 months you mourned me. For 2 months you believed my daughter was dead." But all along, his eyes locked on Vanessa and Damon. It was a performance crafted by the 2 people I trusted most. Gasps rippled through the room. They staged the fire. "They kidnapped my child. They poisoned me while comforting me. And they did it for this." He pointed to the inheritance papers trembling on the judge's desk. "Money. Power. Greed." Elena stepped beside him, her voice trembling but sharp as shattered glass. "I heard them. They kept me locked away. They laughed at my daddy's pain. They said they were going to kill him next." The room erupted, journalists shouting questions, cameras flashing, people rising in outrage. Screens lit up around the chamber as hidden recordings played Vanessa's mocking voice, Damon's laughter, their confession dripping with venom. Gasps turned to fury. Lawyers stepped back from the pair as if they carried disease. Vanessa lunged forward, shrieking, "Lies, all lies!" Damon stammered excuses, pointing at her. "It was her she made me." But it was too late. The world had heard the truth, and the truth was a weapon they could no longer outrun. The courtroom moments earlier, a cathedral of power, now roared like a storm unleashed. Officers surged in their uniforms, slicing through the chaos. Vanessa thrashed as 2 policemen seized her arms, her scream sharp enough to rattle the windows. "You can't do this! I was his wife! I was everything he needed!" Her words dissolved into hysterical sobs as metal cuffs snapped around her wrists. Damon, pale and trembling, backed away until his shoulders hit the wall. The mask of confidence he'd worn for months crumbled into dust. I didn't mean for it to go this far," he babbled, voice cracking. "It was her idea. She forced me. Please, you have to believe me." No one did. The crowd that once pitied them now recoiled in disgust. Cameras captured every broken plea, every desperate lie. And through it all, Adrian stood unmoving, Elena's hand clasped tightly in his father and daughter, survivors of a nightmare built by the very people now being dragged away. When the police finally escorted Vanessa and Damon out, the chamber erupted not in applause, but in a stunned, heavy silence. Justice wasn't triumphant. It was sobering. It was painful. But it was real. Adrian guided Elena out through a side exit, shielding her from the frenzy. The moment the courthouse doors closed behind them, the world felt strangely quiet, as if the universe itself had paused to let them breathe. In the waiting car, Elena rested her head on his shoulder, exhaustion overtaking her tiny frame. Adrian wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "It's over," he whispered into her hair. "No more lies. No more fear. You're safe now." For the first time in months, the word home meant something again. The mansion greeted them not with grandeur, but with a silence that felt almost sacred. Adrian carried Elena through the doorway, as if crossing the threshold into a world they'd both been denied for too long. Gone were the shadows of reporters, the cruel whispers, the suffocating grief. For the first time in months, the air inside felt still gentle, almost welcoming. He pushed open the door to her bedroom, and time seemed to fold in on itself. Everything was untouched, the small shelf of dolls, the stack of picture books, the blanket folded neatly at the foot of her bed, as though the universe had been saving this room, saving this moment for her return. Elena stepped inside slowly, her breath catching as she reached out to touch her favorite doll. The soft fabric met her fingertips, and suddenly her composure cracked. Tears streamed down her cheeks in silent, trembling waves. I thought I'd never see this again," she whispered. Adrian approached his hands gentle as he lifted her chin. "I thought I'd never see you again," he said, voice thick with unshed tears. "But we're here. We survived. And that's what matters now." Elena crawled into her bed, pulling the familiar blanket over herself. Within minutes, exhaustion pulled her into sleep. Adrian settled into the armchair beside her, watching the slow rise and fall of her breathing, the rhythm he had prayed for in his darkest nights. For the first time since losing her, he felt his chest open with something fragile, but real. "Peace," he whispered into the quiet. "Rest, my girl. No one will ever take you from me again." And the house once haunted by absence felt whole again. The next morning dawned softer than any day Adrian had seen in months. A pale gold light brushing gently across the windows, as if blessing the house that had finally begun to breathe again. Elena woke, curled against him, sleepy-eyed, but smiling a real smile, fragile and bright. They shared a quiet breakfast. No words needed, just the comfort of being together in a world that no longer felt hostile. Later, hand in hand, they walked toward the cemetery. The iron gate groaned open, echoing the weight of everything they had endured. Adrian felt Elena's grip tighten as they approached the gravestone, the cold slab that had imprisoned her name, her memory, her life. It stood before them like an old lie refusing to fade. Elena stared at it, her lips parting in a tremble. "That isn't me," she whispered. "It never was." Adrian stepped forward, jaw clenched. For weeks he had knelt here believing he'd lost his child. He had poured sorrow into the dirt beneath his knees. Now he placed his hands on the stone hands that had once shaken from grief, and pushed with all the strength that love and rage had rebuilt inside him. The gravestone cracked, tipping and crashing to the ground with a sound that echoed like thunder across the quiet cemetery. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was freeing. Elena exhaled, a weight lifting from her tiny shoulders as she stepped beside him. "I wasn't born to be buried, Daddy," she said softly. "I was born to live." Adrian pulled her into his arms, tears warming his eyes. "And I will live," he whispered, voice breaking, "to see every moment of your life." Together they turned away from the shattered stone, leaving the lie behind, stepping into a future, finally fully theirs. As Adrian and Elena walked away from the shattered gravestone, the morning light warmed their backs, painting long, gentle shadows across the path. For the first time in months, Adrian wasn't walking toward grief. He was walking out of it. Every step felt like reclaiming something stolen, a heartbeat, a memory, a future. Elena's small hand swung lightly in his, no longer clinging from fear, but resting in trust. The cemetery gate closed behind them with a soft metallic click. Not like a prison door anymore, but like the final punctuation at the end of a long, brutal chapter. They paused at the top of the hill, overlooking the quiet city, its rooftops glowing with dawn. Daddy, Elena murmured, "Yes, sweetheart. Are we safe now?" Adrian knelt to meet her gaze, brushing a stray curl from her cheek. "We're safe," he said, "and we're free. Not because the world changed, but because we chose to keep fighting for each other." Elena smiled, leaning her forehead to his. And in that moment, surrounded by the quiet hum of a new day, it felt as though life itself exhaled with them, soft, healing, alive. They walked home with lighter steps, leaving behind the broken stone and the ghosts of what almost destroyed them. Ahead of them stretched something fragile, something precious, something earned, a beginning. Sometimes the world tries to bury you long before your story is over. But if you hold on, if you fight through the darkness, you'll discover this truth. This: love saves, truth frees, courage rebuilds. And no grave, literal or emotional, can hold a life that refuses to stop living. If this story touched something in your heart today, tell me in the comments. Which moment hit you the hardest? Your words matter more than you think. And if you want more stories of hope, healing, and courage, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. It helps the channel more than you know, and it keeps these stories alive. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and stay in the light.